Good day everyone, especially to our instructor, Mr. Novi Carlo Nasibog. Today, we're going to report our assigned topic entitled Philippine Foreign Policy and International Relation. But before that, let us meet the reporters first. I am Mia Serrano, together with my partner, Ms. Rona Gonzaga. And now, let us proceed to the objectives. So, the objectives. First, describe the domestic and internal factors that influence Philippine foreign relations during martial law in 1972 to 1981 and until the end of the Marcos administration in 1986. Second, identify the foreign policy priorities of the Philippines during this period. Third, identify the foreign policy instruments the Marcos administration used in pursuit of those foreign policy priorities. Fourth, assess the performance of the Philippines' foreign policy relation based on outcomes. And now let us proceed to the proper discussion. Philippine foreign relations in 1946 to 1972. International relations, it is a study of how countries interact with one another in the global stage. It encompasses a wide range of political, economic, social, and diplomatic activities among nation-states. These interactions can involve cooperation, conflict, diplomacy, trade, alliances, and more. The field of international relations seeks to understand the dynamics that shape these relationships and the factors that influence a nation's foreign policy decisions. It plays a crucial role in maintaining global stability and addressing pressing global issues such as security, trade, human rights, and environmental concerns. Next is the post-World War II perspective. Realism focuses on the struggle of power among nation-states. In the post-World War II era, Philippine foreign policy and international relations have been influenced by the realist perspective, which emphasizes the pursuit of national interest and the struggle of power among nation-states. The Philippines, like many other countries, has engaged in strategic alliances and negotiations to secure its sovereignty, economic prosperity, and security. Realism acknowledges that states act in their self-interest and often prioritize power and security in their international dealings. In the context of the Philippines, this has led to a balancing act between various global power and regional neighbors to safeguard its national interest and maintain stability in a complex geopolitical landscape. Next, Philippine foreign policies can be imperialistic, status quo, and aimed at prestige. Philippine foreign policy and international relations are shaped by a combination of factors including historical context, strategic interest, and regional dynamics. While the Philippines generally pursues a status quo foreign policy aimed at maintaining stability and peaceful relations with its neighbors, there have been instances of pursuing prestige, such as seeking international recognition for its stance in issues like the South China Sea. Imperialistic tendencies are not a characteristic of Philippine foreign policy, as it emphasizes diplomacy and multilateral approaches to resolve conflict and promote cooperation in the region. Next, pluralism perspective emphasizes the role of international organizations, cooperations, and non-state actors. The pluralism perspective in Philippine foreign policy and international relations emphasizes the significance of international organizations, corporations, and non-state actors. It acknowledges that these entities play a pivotal role in shaping the global landscape alongside traditional state actors. In this view, international organizations such as the United Nations and ASEAN, multinational corporations, and non-governmental organizations influence and participate in diplomatic and economic processes. The Philippine government engages with these diverse actors to pursue its interests and address global challenges, recognizing that the international arena is not solely defined by state-to-state interactions, but by a complex web of actors and interests. This perspective underscores the need of cooperation and diplomacy beyond national boundaries. Next, it broadens the scope to include cultural, economic, and social issues in international relations. Philippine foreign policy and international relations encompasses more than just political and security concerns. They also prioritize cultural, economic, and social dimensions in their interactions with other nations. This approach recognizes that fostering cultural exchanges, promoting economic cooperation, and addressing social issues are essential components of building stronger international relations. By considering these multifaceted aspects, the Philippines aims to create more comprehensive and mutually beneficial ties with the global community beyond traditional diplomacy and security. Next, the Cold War international environment. The Cold War in 1945 to 1991. The Cold War, which lasted from 1945 to 1991, was a period of intense geopolitical rivalry and ideological conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union. It emerged after World War II and was characterized by a global struggle to for influence and power. The two superpowers never engaged in direct military confrontation but competed through proxy wars, coinage, and a nuclear arms race. This ideological standoff between capitalism and communism had a profound impact on international relations, shaping alliances, conflicts, and diplomacy throughout the Cold War era. It ended with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, marking a significant turning point in global politics. Next, the conflict led to proxy regional wars in places like Greece, China, Korea, Cuba, and Vietnam. The Cold War, a political and ideological rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, resulted in proxy regional wars in various parts of the world. These conflicts, often fueled by the superpower support for opposing sides, occurred in countries such as Greece, China, Korea, Cuba, and Vietnam. The superpower competition in these regions was a manifestation of the broader Cold War struggle, with each side seeking to expand its influence and prevent the spread of the other's ideology, leading to local conflicts and power struggles. The U.S. pursued a containment policy establishing military alliances to encircle the Soviet Union and China. During the Cold War II, the United States implemented a containment policy to counter the spread of communism, primarily led by the Soviet Union and China. This policy involved forming military alliances such as NATO to encircle and limit the influence of these communist powers. By establishing these alliances, the U.S. aimed to prevent the further expansion of communism and maintain a balance of power in the international environment which defined much of the Cold War era. Next is the U.S. had military bases in various countries including the Philippines. During the Cold War, the United States established military bases in various countries as part of its strategy to contain the spread of communism and maintain global influence. One such location was the Philippines, where the U.S. maintained military bases to ensure regional stability and support its alliances in Southeast Asia. These bases played a crucial role in U.S. military operations and intelligence activities during the Cold War, reflecting the broader geopolitical dynamics of the era. The Philippines aligned itself with the U.S. due to hosting American military facilities. During Cold War, the Philippines aligned itself with the United States primarily because it hosted American military facilities. This strategic partnership allowed the Philippines to receive military and economic support from the U.S., which was vital in ensuring its security and stability in the face of regional communist threats. The presence of American military bases in the Philippines served as a deterrent to potential aggressors and symbolized the country's commitment to countering communist influence in Southeast Asia. This alignment was a significant aspect of the Philippine foreign policy during the Cold War era. The next slide, please. The Soviet Union had its military alliances in Eastern Europe called the Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact was a military alliance formed in 1955, led by the Soviet Union, which included several Eastern European countries such as Poland, Germany, and Hungary, among others. It was created as a response to NATO, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and served as a counterbalance during the Cold War. This pact facilitated the Soviet Union's influence in the region and was a symbol of a division between Eastern and Western blocs during the Cold War, ultimately dissolving in 1991 with the end of the Cold War. The Cold War extended the economic competition with the US-led Washington Consensus and the Soviet-led Comecon. The Cold War was not just a political and military standoff, it also involved economic competition. The United States championed the Washington Consensus, promoting free market capitalism and economic liberation, while the Soviet Union led the way with Comecon. It is an organization that coordinated economic planning among communist countries. These economic ideologies were integral of the broader ideological conflict of the Cold War, where capitalism and socialism clash on multiple fronts from politics and economics. This ideological clash underpinned much of the global political and military tensions during the Cold War era, which lasted from the end of World War II until the end of 1990s. The World War was divided between market economies and centrally planned economies. The Cold War international environment was characterized by division between market economies, primarily represented by Western capitalist countries led by the United States, and centrally planned economies associated with Eastern Bloc led by the Soviet Union. This ideological and economic divided fueled by a prolonged geopolitical rivalry with the market economies advocating for free market capitalism and individual freedoms, while the centrally planned economies promoted state control of the economy and collective ownership of resources. Next is the Philippines choose to align with the US during this era of global ideological conflict. During the Cold War, the Philippines aligned with the United States due to several strategic and ideological factors. The US provided economic and military assistance, which was crucial for the Philippines' post-independence, stability, and security. Additionally, the Philippines shared democratic values with the US, making it a natural ally in the context of the global ideological conflict between capitalism and communism. This alignment not only ensured the Philippines' protection, but also allowed it to benefit from American support in the face of regional and global tensions during this period. Okay, next slide. Post-war dependence on the United States. The Philippines relied on the US for assistance after World War II. After World War II, the Philippines heavily depended on the United States for assistance and support. This reliance was mainly due to the economic and military aid provided by the U.S. under various agreements, such as the Belt Trade Act and Mutual Defense Treaty. The Philippines' post-war construction, economic stability, and security were closely tied to the American support, solidifying a period of close bilateral relations. The Philippine Trade Act of 1946 introduced free trade rights for American entities. The Philippine Trade Act of 1946, also known as the Belt Trade Act, established a post-war economic relationship between the Philippines and the United States. It introduced provisions for free trade, allowing for the duty-free export of Philippine goods to the U.S. in exchange for certain economic and military rights for American entities in the Philippines. This agreement cemented the economic dependence of the Philippines on the United States after World War II, as it provided preferential access to the American market but also granted the U.S. strategic advantages in the Philippines, further enforcing the close ties between the two nations. Next, disagreements on war damage estimates and assistance cost tension. After World War II, many European countries faced significant war damage and sought assistance for construction. Disagreements emerged over the estimates of this damage and the level of aid required, causing tension among nations. The United States, as a major post-war power, played a crucial role in providing financial and material support through initiatives like the Marshall Plan. This dependence on the United States aid and the associated political dynamics contributed to the shaping of post-war Europe and the Cold War era. Next is the agrarian unrest in Central Luzon posed a challenge with various administrations adopting different policies. After World War II, the Philippines faced a significant post-war dependence on the United States. This dependency was exacerbated by agrarian unrest in Central Luzon. Successive administrations in the Philippines adopted varying policies to address this issue. While some focused on land reform to elevate agrarian grievances, others maintained a close alignment with the United States, which influenced their policy decisions. The tension between addressing upholding the strategic relationship with the U.S. characterized this post-war period, shaping the Philippines' political and economic landscape. Philippines depended on the U.S. for financial resources and technical expertise. After World War II, the Philippines relied on the United States for both financial support and technical know-how. This dependence stemmed from the post-war rehabilitation and development needs of the nation. The U.S. provided crucial economic aid, investment, and training to help rebuild the Philippine economy and infrastructure. This support played a crucial role in shaping the Philippines' post-war trajectory and economic relationship between the two countries. And last but not the least, this reliance led to an American-leaning foreign policy orientation during subsequent administrations. So again and again, many countries, particularly in Western Europe and Asia, became heavily dependent on the United States for both economic aid and military protection and political support. This reliance on the U.S. fostered a foreign policy orientation where these nations aligned themselves with American interests and values. They sought, like the Marshall Plan and joint alliances like NATO, this American-leaning stance was driven by the perception that the United States was a powerful and dependable ally with significantly shaped international relations in the post-war era. And this ends with my part. For the further discussion, we'll be going to discuss by Ms. Rona Gonzaga.